Good afternoon, Houston. Welcome back to Dabang Power Hour. This is your co-host, Adrienne Norman. Thank you so much for joining me today. We've got an exciting show for you. And remember, the Dabang Power Hour, we are here to bring you a perspective that no other show in Houston can bring to you. We are a nonpartisan show. We are giving you a take on how things work in society. And one of the things that we've been able to do so far in our brief time on the radio is bring you some elected officials so that you can talk to them, ask them questions, and get to know what they do in office. We are in the middle of election season right now. And just as a reminder, Election Day is coming up November 5th. And yesterday was the last day to register, so I hope you got that done. But we've got a few other important deadlines coming up that I don't want you to miss. If you need a mail-in ballot, you can still request one of those by October 25th. And early voting is going to start on October 21st. So things are moving. Things are really heating up this election season. And I'm really excited for y'all to get involved. So today we have a very special guest in studio. We have Fort Bend County Sheriff Eric Fagan, and we're going to get to know a little bit about him and what the sheriff does. And this is your chance to ask questions of Sheriff Fagan as well. So feel free to call in if you've got any questions for Sheriff Fagan. The number is 713-974-4000. Before we get started with Sheriff Eric Fagan, I do want to give a shout out to my co-host Afshin, who's not feeling very well today. Get well soon, Afshin. You sure are missed today. But welcome, Sheriff Fagan. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me here today.
So let's teach people a little bit about yourself. Did you, growing up, would you watch the cop shows and think to yourself, hey, you know what, one day I'm going to be sheriff?
Well, actually, no, I didn't. I was born in Louisiana.
Where in Louisiana?
Harrisburg.
Okay.
It's a small parish by Alexander and Faraday.
Okay.
When I was 1 year old, we moved to Houston. After moving to Houston, I went to Grimes Elementary, Maddings, then Albert Thomas to Sterling, graduated Sterling, then went on to Prairie View A&M University.
Yes, sir.
Where I graduated in criminal justice, first in my class. After that, I worked with the state of Texas as a welfare fraud child abuse investigator. Me and another gentleman named Silas Montgomery were the first two African Americans to ever hold that position as an investigator for the state of Texas.
And so what types of things did you do as a welfare investigator?
We would check to make sure people wasn't doing welfare fraud. Mm-hmm. We had to pull a lot of files, a lot of calculations. At that time, I was only 23 years old. My secretary was older than me.
Oh, wow.
At the time, and it was in the office, and it was a lot of number crunching. And the child abuse section, it was a little bit more serious, but it was inside the office, and I felt closed in. Mm-hmm. And then Houston Police Department was hiring, and I saw that, and I applied, and then I went to the Houston Police Department and did 34 years, 36 with my extra time, added up to all 36 years with the Houston Police Department, and then retiring. After retiring, ran for sheriff, and I was blessed to win that election.
So whenever you were at Prairie View, was your intention to go into law enforcement, or because that's what your degree is in, or was that just something that came upon you?
Something that came upon me. When I first went to Prairie View, I actually majored in drama.
Okay.
I majored in drama, then communications, then from communications to criminal justice. I took interest in criminal justice because I started seeing things that were going on, and it just made me curious. So I took interest in that, which I'm glad that I did, and I took a liking to it. And I remembered growing up in the 60s, how I didn't really trust law enforcement. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really kind to my community, right, to minority communities. So I learned that the only way to change something was to be a part of it, to make that change.
And so during your time with HPD, what were some of the things that you were doing in Houston?
In HPD, I started on patrol in southeast area. Then I went over to Beach Nut. After Beach Nut, I started working in the DARE. I don't know if some people can remember
old
DARE
school
program.
DARE. I remember DARE.
DARE, I did that. And then from there, I went to work in Alternative Dispute Resolution, mediation, in Internal Affairs Division. From there, I went to work for the Mayor's Protection Detail, Mayor Turner. Then from there, I went to work for the Chief's office, Chief Troy Fenner, and then from there I retired. But during my tenure at the Houston Police Department, I won one of the highest awards in law enforcement, Officer of the Year. I won that award not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Wow.
And it's very rare for a person to win that only once, but I've won it 3 times.
That's impressive. Congratulations
Well,
on that.
Thank you.
So you retired from HPD and ran for sheriff. How did it come where you ran for sheriff for Fort Bend County?
Well, while I was at HPD, it was an incident that made me go back to school. It was an incident where I arrested a gentleman. He was shoplifting at a store off of Telephone Road. It was a Kroger's there at the corner of Telephone and Belford. When I arrested him, then the very next week, I would go back. It's the same gentleman, shoplifting, it's just a minor thing, but he would cry. And I didn't understand what was going on. It seemed like he didn't understand what was going on, and that bothered me. It really bothered me. So I wanted to go back to school to learn about psychology. So I went back to school to get my master's in juvenile forensic psychology. And when I did that, during my internship to get my master's, I had to work under a licensed psychiatrist to do psychological evaluations on individuals before they went to court. So I learned a lot about mental illness. So when I retired, I had that up under my belt. So when I retired, working with the mayor, I got to meet Sheila Jackson Lee, and we became friends. And I went to a swearing in of an individual, Jeffrey Boney in Missouri City. He became a city councilman. And Sheila was there, and she asked me what I was doing. And I told her that I retired. And she said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I haven't thought about anything. She asked me where I lived. Well, I lived in Missouri City, Fort Bend County for 31 years, but I worked in Houston. Right. And she said, why don't you run for sheriff? I like, what? She said, run for sheriff. You're more than qualified. You have the experience. You have the knowledge. And your master's in psychology could help with the mental illness that law enforcement face. And so I thought about it, but I had to go home and talk to the real boss, my wife.
For sure.
And when she was on board with it, I decided to run for sheriff, and I was blessed to win that office.
And so you were elected when?
In 2021. I ran in 2020, elected in 2021. I was the first African-American sheriff since Reconstruction, 151 years.
So you've spent, I guess, the last 4 years as sheriff of Fort Bend County.
3 years, 10 months.
Exactly, almost, yes. I rounded up, you're right. Has being sheriff of Fort Bend County been anything like you expected?
Well, it was a lot different from municipal. I had to learn that working with Commissioner's Court and working with the deputies at the Sheriff's Office. I have to admit, leaving HPD, I thought HPD was the best. It trains you the best, had the best training, the best men and women there. But coming here, the men and women at the Sheriff's Office showed me that we have outstanding men and women that work for the Sheriff's Office. But during that time, House Bill 3 hit. A lot of people don't know what House Bill 3 is.
We'll tell our listeners, what is House Bill 3?
House Bill 3 was after the shooting in Uvalde, where they wanted more certified officers at school, and they didn't have the manpower. So where could they get the manpower? At other law enforcement agencies. So how do you attract them? By paying them $5 to $7 an hour more than what we were paying them. And then all of a sudden, across Texas, the legislature didn't mean for this to happen, but that's what happened. We start losing men and women to the agency because they were making more money
Right.
at those agencies. So law enforcement manpower went down. So I had to address that at the sheriff's office. That's one of the biggest concerns, the manpower shortage there at the sheriff's office. When I took office, the sheriff's office deputies hadn't had a raise in over 12 years.
Right.
I went to the commissioner's court to lobby for the men and women and got a 16% raise for the men, on average, a 16% raise for the men and women at the sheriff's office.
And our listeners might not realize, but typically raises from commissioner's court might just be 2 or 3 or 4%.
8 if you're lucky.
8 if you're lucky. And so you were able to secure. That's quite a substantial raise for the sheriff's office.
Yes. And just recently, I can say 3 days ago, I secured on average a 22% raise for the men and women at the sheriff's office. Getting that raise brings us up to the level of other surrounding agencies. But I don't want to stop there. We're the largest law enforcement agency in Fort Bend, so we should be the best paid. So I'm working with the commissioner's court. A lot of people don't realize I don't hold the purse strings.
Yeah, I guess tell the listeners a little bit about that. About how the budget works for the sheriff's office.
The budget comes from the commissioner's court.
And who are the I guess just because really we're educating our listeners
Yes.
and making sure they understand how the county works and how the government works. So who are the commissioners?
You have 4 commissioners, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and you have a county judge. To get something passed, you have to have 3 votes out of the 5, the majority votes, to do that. And at the commissioner's court, like I said before I became sheriff, a raise wasn't given to the men and women. And then to come to find out, because the other sheriffs that were there before me didn't really lobby for that or fought for the raise as hard as I did. I won't say not all of them, but they never got it accomplished. So I went to the commissioner's court to fight for the men and women and to lobby for that raise and to let them know we get the most calls than any other agencies. We take care of the citizens of Fort Bend, so the men and women should be compensated as such, and so we wouldn't lose so many to the other agencies. And the commissioners understood, but each commissioner never took a tour of the sheriff's office before. I had the county judge and all 4 commissioners, Republican and Democrat, come to my office, and they took a tour of the whole jail, of my jail, and a tour of the patrol office of my agency, so they can get a personal understanding. They told me, and I was shocked to find out that has never happened before. So after doing that, and then them understanding, they voted unanimously, and that's very important. All 5 voted that the men and women deserved that raise because they didn't recognize how hard the men and women of the sheriff's office was working.
Yeah, as a former prosecutor and now defense attorney, I've worked lots one-on-one with your deputies, and they're wonderful hard workers, and that's a well-deserved raise for them.
Yes, it is.
You mentioned a little bit, you touched on it about the municipalities, and they have their own police, but I want to make sure our listeners really understand what that means. So if you live, let's say, in the city of Missouri City, in the city limits, or in the city of Sugar Land, you have the chief of police for Missouri City.
Correct.
Or the chief of police for Sugar Land. And those positions aren't elected positions, right?
No, those are appointed positions. In municipality, the mayor or the city manager, if it's a city manager city, they're all appointed. And also, they are the law enforcement there. They're inside of the county of Fort Bend, so we work along with them. But if you call 911, you wouldn't get my agency. You would get their agency. But when they arrest someone, for something over a Class A, they come to my jail.
Gotcha.
So we have to work closely together, and we have a task force that we work together with them, and a drug task force, a human trafficking task force. Some things that the agency didn't have before I got there, especially the human trafficking.
So there's members of the sheriff's office plus Missouri City, Sugar Land, however they combine, and that are part of one task force that operates in Fort Bend County.
Yes, and we work collaboratively together. Those men and women that work for the municipality answer to their chief, where the men and women that work for the sheriff's office answer to the sheriff's office. But we work collaboratively together.
And why are those task force important? What can you do combined that you're not able to do individually?
It's a force multiplier. It's a force multiplier. And as I said, in the municipality, the jurisdiction is belonged to that agency. So they know more about that area than what my officers would know. We work in only the unincorporated areas. If you live in an unincorporated area in Fort Bend, then when you call 911, it will come to my agency.
So if you're unincorporated, that means you're not in the city limits.
You're not in the city limits.
So it means you don't vote for a mayor, you don't vote for a city council,
correct.
Right?
You vote for county, individuals like commissioners.
That can be confusing for some people, right?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
You've mentioned your pay raises that you secured for your deputies. What are some of your other accomplishments that you're proud of?
I'm very proud of a lot of things, the human trafficking. I started working with District Attorney Brian Middleton, a big supporter of mine, when I became there. When I became the sheriff of Fort Bend County, the sheriff's office and the DA's office did not work together. I thought that was wrong. So I bridged that gap, working with Brian Middleton and myself, and we put together a task force of human trafficking, and we've arrested over 100 human traffickers right here in Fort Bend County. A statement was made past administration that human trafficking didn't exist in Fort Bend County. Well, I'll let you know that wasn't true. I promise you, those 100 human traffickers didn't come here just because I was the sheriff. They were already here. We rescued over 30 victims of human trafficking. And also, I'm very proud of how we're addressing the mental illness. A lot of people don't realize majority of people with mental illness are not in hospitals in our states. They're in county jails or in our county jails. So we have to do something to help them, because the county jail is not the best place for them to get the proper care that they need.
I want to. That was actually something that I wanted to talk to you about. Was mental health and mental illness it's gotten a lot of attention, rightly so, lately in the news. Unfortunately, it's uncommon it is common for people to call the police on people that are having a mental health crisis. I'm thrilled to learn about your background in especially juvenile forensic psychology. I was a former juvenile prosecutor, and I handle a lot of juvenile cases as a defense attorney. And there's a lot of unmet needs for mental illness for kids.
Yes.
Talk to the listeners about specifically, if somebody's having a mental health crisis, what, if anything, can the sheriff's department do for that?
We can do a lot. We have a CIT, a crisis intervention team. These are deputies who are specially trained to deal with mentally ill people, how to de-escalate. When I became sheriff, the CIT was already there, but it only worked day shift. Well, my education, I know mental illness doesn't stop at 5 o'clock. So I doubled the size of that CIT, so we work 24/7. Not only that, we work with the other municipalities in Fort Bend. Any agency in Fort Bend is welcome to use my CIT, and they have gone out when they're shorthanded to help other agencies when they go to a house when they have a mental illness there at the house.
Is there does someone just call 911 and ask? Do you have to ask for them, or is there a special number to call?
They just call our office. 911 is one, but you let us know that your loved one is in a mental crisis. Now we do after we run a call and we find there's a mental ill person there, we will mark that. You might call it flag it. That way when we get calls that we already know, the CIT officer, especially trained, sometimes where a disturbance call an officer may only going to be there maybe 30 minutes, 2 hours at the max. Well, that CIT officer knows he might be there anywhere from 1 hour to 5 to 6 to 8 hours to calm that person down. It's a different way to do it.
Right.
And that's not asking more, but people have to realize mental illness is that last word. It's an illness, like any other illness. People are off their medication.
Right.
We have to recognize that. We have to recognize signs of mental illness, different tics that I learned in school. When you see someone on radio, no, nobody can see that. But
Well, some of our listeners can. We've
okay.
got some people watching on
Well,
YouTube or on
different tics.
Facebook.
You walk up to an individual and they just tapping themselves like that, or tapping themselves like. Well, that's a tic. That's a sign that they have a mental illness, or they have visual hallucination, auditory hallucination. Officers think that person is ignoring them or something like that, when all actuality, that person is seeing something or hearing something that you don't see, but it's real to them.
And that can be dangerous for that person.
It could be very dangerous for that person and also for that officer.
Right. So you've got the crisis intervention team. Do your other deputies, say your patrol deputies, do they have mental health training as well?
Yes. By state law, all agencies, they have to train. But I give my officers over what the state requirement, because I work with Texana and other mental health entities to come in to teach our officers what to learn about. One of the first things when I was the sheriff of Fort Bend, I was coming out of the courts, and when I went to the courts, I saw officers there talking to an individual, had him detained and was talking to him. I was in the court for over an hour, and I came back out. It was a band of cars there, more cars, so I walked over to see what was going on. I recognized the guy had the tics. He was going through a mental crisis. And the supervisor that was there and 5 other deputies that showed up, they was trying to get him to let them make an arrest, but they didn't want to rush him or anything like that. But they didn't understand what was going on. He's saying that he wasn't listening. So I went over, and I used my education to talk to that individual. And I was trying to let them see, too, all he needed to know is I told him exactly what was going to happen. I told him that I was the sheriff of Fort Bend County. All these men and women standing here, they work for me, and we're here for your help. What's going to happen is this. I'm finna come over. I'm going to touch you on your right shoulder. I'm going to walk you over to that car. I'm going to tell you to place your hands on top of that car. When you place your hands on top of that car, I'm going to touch your side of your body, on your hips and all the way down your legs, and come back up. After I do that, an officer is going to put a handcuff on your left hand and bring it back to your back and put the other cuff on that other hand to make sure that you are not harmed or hurt. And then we're going to place you in the back of the car and get you help that you need. And he looked at me and he understood. They were out there for over 3 hours. When I got there and started talking, they was like, Sheriff, we were telling them what I say. It was too many of you all talking to them at one time.
Right.
You were confusing them. And so I say all it needed was one person, and you have to tell them exactly what you're going to do. Because some people, they get excited when you touch them.
Sure.
And so you have to know that. But I've learned if you tell people know exactly what you're going to do, and you don't sway from that, usually that calms them down.
And so that was an experience you had early on as a sheriff. Is that kind of what shaped your vision or motivated you for the mental
motivated me to that I wanted my officers to get even more training, because a lot of time I know a lot of people put the blame on the officers, and they shouldn't. They need the training. This is something that's not new, but officers need the training to get that. So you need people in the office in command position that understands that.
Right. Is there anything that you, in the last 4 years, 3 years and 10 months, sorry, is there anything that you wish you had accomplished that you haven't been able to do yet?
Well, I'm blessed to say all 7 campaign promises I've made, I kept.
Okay.
And I've done even better than was expected. I started a crew, crime reduction unit. This unit was put together specially to go into high crime areas. You know, like we have a high tick of burglaries or auto theft. Well, the crew will go there, and they will stay there till we bring that down. That's something they never had before. Also, like I said, the human trafficking, doing that, ICAT, boosting that up, internet crimes against children, also working with ICAT on the dark web to help bring down human trafficking.
So ICAC is the internet crimes against children.
Against
so they're
children.
out there on the web looking for these people.
Yes. Well, they pretend to be the young girl you think you're talking to,
right,
or the young boy you think you're talking to. You're actually talking to one of my deputies, and they make these dates to meet them at a hotel or something like that. And when they get there, they're arrested. And I know a lot of people say, "Why are you telling that?" I want the perpetrators to know about this. I want them to know that you may not be talking to a young person. You may be talking to an officer. And if you do, we're going to prosecute you. We work along with the DA's office, who works with us to do these things.
You touched a little bit on burglaries being sometimes on the rise, maybe in some areas. Crime statistics have definitely been in the news lately. Let's talk to us about the trends in Fort Bend County. Are there crimes that are going up, crimes that are going down?
Yes. Crimes are, when I took office, it was over 600,000 individuals lived in Fort Bend. We're now over 900,000.
We're booming, yeah.
We're booming. But with that, not only good people are moving in, sometimes bad people move in. My jail population is growing as well. So the crime numbers are going up, but our arrest numbers are going up as well. Fort Bend is one of the safest counties in the nation. During election time, you always hear, "Oh, you're not safe." Well, you are safe. For us, like the children, predators of children, people who have to register sex offenders. I have a sheriff's app that I had created here at Fort Bend County that never was here before. We have a sheriff app. You can go onto my app and you can see where every sex offender lives. They show the address of the house, so you know to keep your children away from. It might be a person that lives next door to you. This registration is important. When I took office, there were over, maybe at the time, 300. Then it was up to 430. There was one deputy doing that. I knew that wasn't enough.
Right.
So I put other officers on that from other divisions to work with that deputy, where we had every one of them registered and on that app. So you can go onto my sheriff's app, right, which is free of charge. You can go to your Google Play Store and look for the Fort Bend Sheriff's app and download it on your phone.
What are some other things you can do with the app?
You can report crimes on your app.
Is that done anonymously, or is it
you can do it on the app. On the app, it's not anonymous because you registered on there. But also, if you have a loved one in my jail, you can follow that person in the jail on that app. You can put money on the commissary books on that app. You can check on your case on that app. And also we alert people of crime that's going on in the area. If something is going on, go on that app, you can see where it is to stay away from certain areas. Also, if something's happening at the schools, check the app. It'll tell you to let you know.
So I've seen the flyers around the courthouse lately. I haven't downloaded the app yet, but I will do that today. And so it's on. You can, if you've got an Android, you can go to Google Play. If you've got an iPhone, go to the Apple Store.
Yes.
Fort Bend County Sheriff, and that'll pull it up.
Yes, Fort Bend County Sheriff's app.
That's fantastic. We had a visitor on the radio a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to ask you, just because I think it's interesting to see how the different law enforcement community work together. We had Precinct 3 Constable Shike on our show.
Yes.
So does he work for you?
No, he doesn't work for Constable Shike is the head of his agency, but we work closely together. We did one thing together working with the U.S. Marshal. Constable Shike's office worked closely with us to arrest the most violent offenders in Fort Bend. I'm talking about people who had murder warrants out on them, aggravated assault cases on them, drug charges, gang charges. It was Constable Smith's office that worked along, Constable Shike office that worked along with me to make those arrests. Constable Shike's office is in need of more officers, but that's the Commissioner's Court there. He's the only constable's office that works 24/7. A lot of these constables' office stops at 10 o'clock. He doesn't. He looks at law enforcement the way it should be looked at. He makes his officers work 24/7. The main duty of a constable, yeah, it is to serve paper, but they have the same authority as any law enforcement officer. And Shike realized that, and he works with us. Now, don't misunderstand me. The other agencies works with us as well, but on that case, it was Constable Shike's office that stepped up.
Very good. Thank you for that explanation of it's kind of a division, different subdivisions
Yes.
within the county. Let's talk about, I guess, the subdivisions within your office.
The unincorporated areas.
And that service the unincorporated areas of Fort Bend County. So how is the sheriff's office broken down into different responsibilities and duties?
We have four districts, and we put patrol out there. That's why I created the crime reduction unit, because law enforcement is shorthanded everywhere. And during election time, you hear people, they only have shorthanded, not just at the sheriff's office, all over. That's why I created the crime reduction unit, to help booster the other areas when the crime goes up. We've made more homicide arrests than ever before. We've taken off more drugs off the streets than ever before. We've taken off over 1 million fentanyl pills off the streets of Fort Bend County because we boosted our drug task force and our gang task force. We've taken off more guns than ever before, arrested more gang members. That 1 million fentanyl pills could have killed everyone in Missouri City, Sugar Land.
Fentanyl is scary.
Yes, Sugar Land, Richmond. The population combined, it could have killed everyone. But we took it off the streets, and we confiscated over 5 pill mills here in Fort Bend County. So we're doing the work to keep Fort Bend County one of the safest in the nation.
You touched on this, I guess, in a little bit in your introduction about maybe you didn't have the best experience or relationship with with law enforcement growing up. Is your office doing anything specifically for youth outreach or to build, I guess, those positive relationships early on with our young people?
We started, I created a JJAX, that's Juvenile Justice Committee, where we have 16-year-old individuals and olders coming from high school, junior high, coming to our agency, and they sit down and talk with officers. We also do fun projects like taking them to Main Event, I think that's called, that we pay for, or Pizza with the Cop, where we go to different schools. And we go to at-risk schools especially to have Pizza with the Cop, to give the kids a second chance, to let them know what they're doing now could ruin their life. They have a chance now to turn it around. So we do that, Pizza with the Cop, and JJAX, where they come to our facility and sit down with a certified officer and talk to them so they can be more calm in what to do when interacting with the officer.
How would somebody, I guess, is that JJAX something you sign up for, or is
yes.
How do you do that?
You have your parents call our agencies to do it. And also Brian Middleton has also created something with the kids as well. So now in Fort Bend County, we do a lot of things with the youth. We also have internships during the summer where they can come and work for us, paying them $15 an hour. Sometimes it's their very first job, showing them the responsibilities of having a job. If they want to have a job in law enforcement or as a DA or as a county tax assessor, all these different entities, we have internships for them during the summer.
We've talked a little bit about those county internships on the show before. What are some of the things that the interns get to do at the sheriff's office?
Well, they get to work in different divisions because I have a lot of different divisions. They can work in homicide division. They can work in the juvenile division. They can work in ICAT. They can work in investigations, looking at crime and things like that. They can work over in the livestock, what we do. I know Fort Bend, but we still have cattle crimes
We do,
that go
yes.
on. So they can work over there, or in our dispatch, in dispatch or in records. There's a lot of many different various things you can do in law enforcement.
And so do the kids sign up for the internships through the county just like they do all of
Yes.
the other county internships
Yes.
through the Fort Bend County website?
Yes, 'cause we only could take so many,
Sure,
so
sure.
it's divided. Yes.
So I guess, if a young person is interested in a career in law enforcement, what is some of the advice that you would give them early on and then, moving on into their preparation?
I would tell them this: to work at the sheriff's office, you only need a high school diploma or a GED. But I would encourage them to get as much education as they can and that's something I'm trying to change at the sheriff's office, because I want to get incentive pay for education pay. At the Houston Police Department, they paid me for my bachelor's degree, and then they paid me even more when I got my master's. I want that same pay incentive here at the sheriff's office. So I'm working now with the commissioners on that.
What are some of, I guess, as with a career in law enforcement, other than monetary, right, and a good, stable career, what are some of the, I guess,
The main
less tangible benefits that you would get?
The most tangible event, and for me, is service. Giving back to the community that gave so much to me is to give back. Like I said, I was born in Louisiana, a small parish, and I always went back during the summertime. I know a lot of people don't know what that is, but we had outhouses. That's something, modern day, a bathroom is totally different.
Right.
But I came from that. From that, my education brought me from there to where I am today, to have a master's degree, to work for the state as the first African American, as an investigator, to work for the chief of police, to work for the mayor of the city. Education opened those doors for me. So I want the people to know that becoming law enforcement, that education can even open more doors for you, and you can do even more in law enforcement. Studies have shown, empirical studies have shown, the more educated that law enforcement officer is, the better that officer is working with individuals from a diverse community.
Absolutely. And I think that, if you're a young person and you are service-minded, looking for a way to give back, excitement, right?
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Something new every day.
Right. Something new every day that definitely a young person should consider that in their career possibilities.
Yes.
You touched on the Fort Bend County Jail briefly, but what I want to make sure our listeners understand is that's your responsibility. The jail is your responsibility.
Yes, it's one
right?
of my biggest responsibilities. The county jail is different from any other jail. People need to realize that, because a county jail, some of the people in my jail have not been adjudicated yet.
What does that mean? What is
I just was
adjudicated?
adjudicated. They haven't been to court to be found guilty.
So they've been arrested and they're kind of waiting for their case to happen.
And in the United States, you're innocent until proven guilty. So technically, I have innocent people in my jail.
So why are they in jail?
Because they didn't pay the bond.
Okay.
They didn't have the money to pay the bond. And so they're in my jail. So
the bond is just a reassurance for them
they'll come back to court. It's a promissory
court.
note saying that they will come back to court. But some people cannot afford that bond, or some other reason. They could be a no bond. But they still haven't been adjudicated, went to court yet. I'll use that term. Haven't been to court yet. So we have to treat everybody in my jail with dignity and respect. And also with the mental illness, a lot of people don't realize, studies have shown a person with mental illness stays in a county jail 6 times longer for a crime that another person without mental illness does. 6 times longer. Why is that? Because in a county jail, if you break certain rules and regulations, they can file other charges on you. Well, why are they breaking those rules and regulations? A lot of times it's because of that mental illness. So when I became sheriff, I changed that. I said no longer will we file charges on individuals who break rules because of their mental illness, because you think they're not listening to you, because they may have auditory hallucination, or you thinking they're not paying attention, they could have visual hallucinations. So we have to pay attention to make sure that's not the reason. And if that's the reason, no longer do we file charges. But if they harm one of my deputies or do something egregious, yes, we do file charges on them, but not just because they threw water on them or threw something like that, or they wasn't paying because of that mental illness. We don't charge them. It's like me arresting you because you have diabetes. It's an illness. It's an illness. And I had some people say, when I use that analogy, he's trying to say mental illness is just like diabetes. No, I'm not. I'm saying it's an illness. Mental illness is just, it's an illness like diabetes is an illness. Sure. So I had that thrown out saying, Sheriff Fagan think diabetes is like mental illness. I was like, don't you know what an analogy is?
Right. I mean, you need treatment, you need medicine.
Right.
That treatment could be counseling, it could be medicine. It's going to be different for every person, but it's still going to require.
But you shouldn't be punished
sort of
because of your illness.
Is there anything that you would say sets your jail apart from others? Let's just say in Texas, especially.
Well, I can say this. Since I've been sheriff, we've met all the jail standards, criteria. We've ranked highly on all of them. The last time that they came by, they told us we were one of the cleanest sheriff's jails, not just in the state, but in the nation.
So who's doing that inspection?
The jail commissioner, jail standard. And the thing about it is they come without letting you know. So they just can show up. But my deputies are always on their toes and being prepared. Even though we are shorthanded, we've passed every inspection since I've been sheriff, and I'm very proud of that.
I want to talk to you and ask you about our listeners, if they want to be of help to law enforcement, just as an average person in the community. What would be some suggestions that you would give our listeners to how they could help law enforcement?
You can help us by being our eyes and ears.
Okay, like what?
Like human trafficking. In your neighborhood, you could have a human trafficker right next door to you, but you have to see the signs. Signs like this: cars coming late at night, but only people coming are men. Or you see a van coming delivering different loads of food, but you don't see anybody coming out. You just see people coming in. Or you see burglar bars that are on the outside and the locks are on the outside. Not only your neighbors to pay attention, but I want utility workers to pay attention. Windows that have foil up at the windows so no one can see in, to see in. Or you see when the people do come out, they come out in a line. And one person is standing looking at these people getting in the car. They're ushering them in, things like that. These type of things. What I want you to do is not you go over there. I want you to call us to let us investigate it. We just shut down a ring. A gentleman escaped from a human trafficking event. They had these individuals in a garage. He ran and saw some construction workers who called us, and we went over there to investigate. We sat up on it, and we put a wiretap on that phone. We had to rush in and to rescue the other people because we were trying to get more people to come, but we overheard on the radio that they were coming to pick up the people that was in there, so we couldn't wait because we wanted to arrest all of them, so we had to rush in to save those other 5 individuals. But we wouldn't have done that if that individual, the people at that construction company, wouldn't have called us.
Is there anything other than just, being observant and reporting things like that? Is there anything else that you would tell people to do that would be proactive to maybe keep themselves safe or to help things in that nature?
Yes. Things you can do to keep yourself safe is this. When you go out, because look, Most crimes are crimes of opportunity.
Right.
Opportunity. Don't leave open packages in your car. When you're even at the gas pump, and this especially to the ladies, don't leave your purse in the seat, even while you're pumping the gas. Put it around your shoulder. I've seen many times when individuals walk up to the car, rush in, grab the purse, and run away. That 84-year-old woman who got jerked down because of that. It's just simple things. Or if you can't, bring somebody with you. There is strength in numbers, safety in numbers. When you go to the mall, try to park close to the door as you can, under a lighted area. When you leave, pay attention to your surroundings. If you think someone is following you, because that's what they want to do, follow you back to your car, go back inside the store and ask someone to walk you to the car, or call the law enforcement agency to come out, and we'll come out to you. These are simple things that you can do. And also, the kids. We want to keep our kids. That's the most precious things that we have. Is something simple you can do, and I know you'll think this is crazy, but when you go into the store or anything like that, especially a big mall or a carnival or something with your child, take a quick picture of your child that day, the clothes they have on.
Show what they're wearing.
Show them what they're wearing. If they get lost, you have an accurate picture to show. When you get home that night, delete it. But when you go out and you know you're going to be around a lot of people, take a quick picture. If something was to happen.
That's an easy thing to do.
Easy thing to do. That way the law enforcement could have that. Also, if you have an elderly loved one, sign up to our Yana project. You're not alone. It's a
Yana, you are not okay.
You are not alone. YANA. You are not alone. This is an organization that I beefed up. It was already here when I became sheriff, but we beefed it up. Whereas if an elderly person is living at home or with another elderly person, they can sign up for this, and we call them 3 times a day.
How do you sign up?
Just call our office and say you want to sign up for Yana. If we call you, you don't answer the first time. We're going to call you the second. You don't answer. Call you the third. You don't answer. We're sending a unit out there to check on you. We actually had a young lady in our community that signed up for Yana who broke her hip. We called her 3 times, no answer. We went there. She was less than 5 feet from the phone. She couldn't answer.
Couldn't get there.
Just think if she hadn't signed up for Yana.
Yeah.
So that
is to think about that.
Yeah, I would hate to think about that. But things like that does happen. So if you have a loved one that have to live in Fort Bend, I'm sorry to say that, have to live in Fort Bend, but you live somewhere else and you know that your loved one lives in Fort Bend, you can sign that loved one up for yourself for Yana, and we'll call them. They even come over and change our filters for them, change light bulbs for them, do these little simple things, and it's no charge. It's free.
So I love that. I learned something new today. I didn't know about Yana. Some people might be afraid of calling the police or reporting something if they see it. Maybe that's because they've had a bad past experience, or maybe they just don't know their rights when it comes to things like that. Does the sheriff's office have any sort of education programs for just the people of Fort Bend County where they can learn?
Yes, I have a citizens review board that people sign up for. But you brought up a very pertinent point. Some people, especially in the South Asian community, are first-time residents into our country, and they have a negative view of law enforcement. What they did over there, we don't do here, like giving an officer money when they at a traffic stop. We look at that as bribery, but they look at it. Well, that's something we do Well, we don't do that here. And if an officer does that, they broke the law, so they need to know that. And also that we work for them. They don't work for us.
Right.
So that's something they need to learn here in Fort Bend, in all law enforcement agencies, that's not in Fort Bend, that you have to reach out, because a lot of crime is committed by other members of the same community because they know they're afraid of law enforcement because what happened over there where they came from. Well, it's not the same here. It's different.
So what is the Citizens Review Board? What does that?
The Citizen Review Board is something that I created where citizens from all parts of different sectors of Fort Bend. I have South Asians on that committee. I have people from Hindu, Muslim, Catholic, Baptist, African Americans, Caucasian, Republican, and Democrat that sits on this. We change them out every 3 years. We change them out, but that review board is there because of complaints that comes for the sheriff's office. We want to be very transparent, and we bring certain cases, and ask them, what do you think we should do because of this? Now, the last decision is mine, but I want the citizens to know, what do you think we should do? And I listen to them.
If somebody wants to sign up for this, or how do they
they apply?
Okay.
They apply, and they're selected. They're
Gotcha.
selected, and a lot of people think I do the selection, but I don't do the selection because I want it to be non-biased. I have I created it, but I wanted to make sure that it would be non-biased because I didn't want it to be just my friends.
Just an echo chamber to hear your own ideas.
So that committee, they pick the individuals so they can see that it's non-biased. Because I have people calling me, put me on that committee. I can add your name,
Sure.
but I'm not the one that selects you.
So we're running out of time. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but I did want to make sure that our audience knows you're up for re-election in
Yes.
November. And if the people of Fort Bend County give you the opportunity to serve again, I guess, what are you looking forward to accomplishing?
My main thing is keeping the promises that I made, keeping Fort Bend one of the safest county, bringing in more agencies before collaborating, something that we haven't been doing in the past that we're doing now. I've been blessed to be voted unanimously the chair of HIDA, a congressional law enforcement agency with federal agencies. The U.S. Attorney sits on that board. The SAC of FBI, the senior investigator in charge, sits on that board. A member of ICE sits on that board. Houston Police Chief, all these different federal agencies and local agencies sit there. And for the first time in history, they have a sheriff as the chair. Well, I'm that sheriff. They voted me unanimously as to be the chair. Mm-hmm. Well, what does that mean? That means it brings more federal eyes to our agencies. That task force, the FBI, they do a active shooter scenario where they do an not actual active shooter, but put on an act like it's a real active shooter. They do it in major cities. They've never done it in Fort Bend. By me being on the board, talking to the FBI SAC, I had it to come to our county. And we actually did that here so we can be better prepared if something like that was to happen.
Yeah.
I want to keep that going on for Fort Bend to be the leader in law enforcement in Fort Bend.
Thank you so much, Sheriff Fagan.
Thank you so much for having
joining us
me
today. That was very informative, and I enjoyed that. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
So thank you. And listeners, thank you for joining us today as well. Dabang Power Hour is here every Tuesday from 1 to 2 p.m., and we hope that you join us next week.